Michael, can I ask you something? Why is it that so many English learners can pass a written test, understand movies without subtitles, but then freeze the second someone asks them to speak?
Oh, wow, that's painfully specific. I think I know exactly what you mean.
Right? Like they know the words, they understand the grammar, but their brain just stops working.
It's like the knowledge is there, but there's this weird disconnect between knowing English and being able to actually produce it on the spot.
Welcome back to Native English Skills. I'm Emily, and today we're talking about something that actually has a scientific explanation: how to train your brain to speak English fluently.
I'm Michael, and today we're breaking down exactly why this happens and, more importantly, how to fix it.
By the end of this episode, you'll understand how your brain learns to speak, and we're giving you real, actionable techniques to train it faster.
So stick around.
Okay, so let's start with the basics. Michael, from a learning perspective, why is speaking so much harder than understanding?
It comes down to what neuroscientists call receptive versus productive language. Receptive means listening and reading. Your brain is just receiving information. Productive means speaking and writing. Your brain has to generate language from scratch.
So it's different skills entirely.
Exactly. When you listen to English, your brain only has to recognize patterns and match them to meaning. But when you speak, your brain has to do three things at once: access vocabulary, apply grammar rules, and produce sounds, all in real time. It's way more complex.
That's why people go completely silent when someone asks them a question?
Their brain is basically running a software update in real time. Hold on, I need to find the word, arrange it in the correct order, check my grammar. Okay, now speak. Meanwhile, the person is staring at them, waiting for an answer.
I've totally seen that. It's like you can see someone's brain working.
And here's the thing. Most English learners train the receptive side. They watch movies, read articles, listen to podcasts, but they don't train the productive side enough.
So it's an imbalance.
Huge imbalance. Your brain is excellent at recognizing English when it hears it, but not prepared to produce it automatically. And automatic is the key word here.
Okay, I want to dig into this automaticity thing because I think a lot of people don't realize how important it is.
Right. So when you're a native English speaker, you don't think about grammar. You just speak. Your brain has stored thousands of sentence patterns and they come out automatically. You don't do the mental work.
It's like when you drive a car. When you first learn, you're thinking about every movement. But after a while, you just drive without thinking.
Perfect analogy. That's called procedural memory. Your brain has moved the skill from the conscious thinking part of your brain to the automatic reflexive part.
So most learners are stuck in that conscious thinking phase?
Yeah. When they try to speak, their brain is still in learning mode, consciously accessing rules. That's slow. It's exhausting, and it makes you sound unnatural.
Because you're literally explaining grammar in your head while you're talking.
Exactly. Like, okay, this is past tense, so I need the ED ending and I need to conjugate it with the correct auxiliary verb. Meanwhile, you're supposed to be having a conversation.
So the goal is to move speaking from conscious to automatic?
100%. And that's actually trainable. That's literally what we're going to talk about today.
So if the goal is automaticity, how does the brain actually get there? Like, what's the process?
There are basically three stages. Stage one is unconscious incompetence. You don't know what you don't know. You hear native speakers and you don't even notice patterns.
That's usually beginners, right?
Yeah, and that's fine. Stage two is conscious competence. You start to notice patterns, you learn rules, you practice intentionally. This is where most learners spend time.
The study phase.
Right. You're conscious of what you're doing. You're thinking about rules and patterns. This is necessary, but, and this is crucial, if you stop here, you'll never be fluent.
Because you're still in thinking mode.
Exactly. And this is where most English learners get stuck. They're really good at stage two. They study, they practice, they improve, but they never move to stage three, which is unconscious competence, where fluency lives.
That's the magic stage.
It's the stage where you can speak without thinking, like a native speaker. You're not aware of the rules anymore. They've become automatic. Your brain just produces language.
So how do you actually get there? What's the training?
That's where it gets interesting, because it's not just about studying harder, it's about training your brain differently.
So if I just listen to an English podcast, I'm not training my speaking brain?
You're training your listening brain. Totally different system. If you want to speak, you have to speak.
So like repeat the phrase immediately after you hear it?
Yes. Listen to a phrase. Pause. Say it exactly as the native speaker said it. Pay attention to their intonation, their rhythm, the way their mouth moves. This is called shadowing, and it's incredibly powerful.
How often would you need to do this to see results?
Research shows that most motor skills need around 300 to 1,000 repetitions before they become automatic. For language, it's similar. You probably need to repeat a phrase 10 to 20 times before your brain moves it into automatic storage.
Wow, so people really underestimate how much practice is needed?
Massively. Most learners do a few repetitions and think they know it, but their brain hasn't transferred it to automatic storage yet. They still need conscious access to produce it.
So it's not enough to practice a little. You have to practice enough to build automaticity.
Exactly. And that's why daily practice is so important. Your brain needs to access that neural pathway repeatedly until it becomes a reflex.
Okay, so we talked about repetition, but there's also this thing called spaced repetition that I think is really important for speaking specifically.
Oh yeah, definitely. So spaced repetition is when you review the same material over time with increasing gaps between reviews. Like you review it today, then tomorrow, then in 3 days, then in a week. Why does that work better than just practicing the same thing over and over in one session? It's about how memory works. When you practice something back to back, your brain thinks, oh, we just did this, I still remember. But when you take a break and come back to it, your brain has to work harder to retrieve it. And that harder retrieval actually strengthens the neural pathway.
So the struggle is actually what makes the memory stronger?
Exactly. It's called the spacing effect, and it's one of the most reliable findings in learning science. Spaced practice is way more effective than massed practice.
So if I practice a phrase 10 times in one day, that's not as good as practicing it 3 times today, 3 times tomorrow, and so on?
Bingo! Your brain actually forgets a little bit between sessions, which forces it to work harder to retrieve the memory. And that effort is what makes the memory stick long term.
That's counterintuitive because it feels like you're doing less practice.
Right? You feel like you're doing less, but your brain is actually doing more cognitive work. It's smarter practice, not harder practice.
So how would someone apply this to speak English?
You could save useful phrases you want to learn and then practice them in spaced intervals. Today, you practice 10 phrases. Tomorrow, you review those 10 and add 5 new ones. In 3 days, you review the original 10 and practice them again. Your brain is constantly retrieving them from deeper memory.
That really accelerates automaticity?
It absolutely does, because after a few cycles of spaced repetition, your brain stops having to think about the phrase. It just produces it automatically when you need it.
Okay, I want to talk about shadowing more because I think it's one of the most underrated techniques for pronunciation and natural speech patterns.
Oh, shadowing is amazing. It's basically like you're copying a native speaker in real time.
So you listen to someone speak and you try to say the words exactly as they say them at the exact same time. Your pronunciation, your intonation, your rhythm, everything.
Why is that so effective for the brain?
Because you're training 2 things at once, the motor memory of how to produce the sounds and the rhythm and intonation patterns of natural English. You're basically getting your brain to adopt native speaker patterns.
So you're not just learning words, you're learning how a native speaker actually sounds.
Exactly. And here's the cool part. Your brain is really good at copying patterns. Kids learn languages by mimicking, right? They don't study grammar. They just copy how adults sound.
And they pick it up in like a year.
Exactly. So if you use the same method, mimicry, your adult brain can do the same thing, just a little slower, but it's incredibly powerful.
What kind of material works best for shadowing?
Ideally, you want something that's not too fast and not too hard linguistically, like a conversation about familiar topics. Podcasts are perfect. YouTube videos are perfect. Movie scenes work too, but the language can be a bit informal.
So you don't want to shadow Shakespeare or something technical?
Oh, no, definitely not. You want natural contemporary English, conversational English, the kind of English you'll actually use.
How long would someone shadow for?
Start with 10 to 15 minutes a day. Just pick a video or podcast episode and shadow as much as you can. At first, you'll struggle to keep up. That's totally normal. But after a few weeks, your brain starts predicting what comes next, and you can shadow more fluently.
So it gets easier over time?
Way easier. And it's because your brain is building a library of natural English speech patterns. You're essentially downloading native speaker English directly into your brain. This might sound weird, but I think one of the biggest breakthroughs for learners is learning to speak before they're ready.
What do you mean by ready?
Like they're waiting until they know they're going to say something perfectly before they open their mouth. So they plan the sentence in their head, check the grammar, and then speak. That takes forever.
And it sounds super unnatural.
Because native speakers don't do that. Native speakers just open their mouth and speak. They make mistakes, they self-correct, they use filler words like and like. It's messy.
So learners are training their brain to do something native speakers don't actually do?
Exactly. And this is a huge mindset shift. Most English learners think they need to be perfect, but fluency isn't about perfection. It's about speed and spontaneity.
How do you train yourself to speak without thinking?
You have to practice speaking under time pressure. Like, you ask yourself a question and you give yourself 5 seconds to respond. You can't plan. You just have to produce language immediately.
Why is that effective?
Because it trains your brain to access language automatically instead of consciously. When you're under pressure, you don't have time to think about grammar. Your brain just retrieves whatever language is available.
So you're forcing your brain to use the automatic pathways instead of the conscious ones?
Yes, and after a while, your brain realizes, oh, I can actually do this without thinking, and that's when real fluency starts.
That's actually a game changer. Most learners never practice under time pressure.
They practice slowly and carefully, but then in real conversation, they freeze because their brain hasn't trained for that speed and spontaneity. One more thing I want to touch on, vocabulary, because people often think vocabulary is about memorizing definitions, but for speaking, it's different.
How is it different?
When you learn a word from a dictionary, you're learning a definition, but when you learn a word for speaking, you're learning it in context, with natural collocations, the words that naturally go together.
So it's not enough to just know the word take. You need to know that you take a risk, take advantage, take a chance, take time.
Exactly. Native speakers think in chunks and phrases, not isolated words. So if you want to speak like a native, you have to learn phrases, not just words.
How do you learn phrases?
Exposure and production. You encounter phrases in natural context, in podcasts, conversations, videos, and then you practice producing them. You use spaced repetition with the phrases, not just individual words.
And this helps with automaticity?
Massively. Because when you learn in phrases, your brain stores the entire phrase as a unit. So when you need to speak, you retrieve the whole phrase at once. You're not accessing individual words and assembling them in real time.
So you're downloading pre-made sentences instead of building them from scratch?
That's a good way to think about it. Your brain is stocking a library of ready-to-use phrases. Real fluency is basically having a large library of chunks you can access automatically.
That actually makes fluency feel achievable.
It really does, because you're not trying to learn millions of words. You're trying to learn useful phrases and train your brain to access them quickly.
Okay, let me just make sure I understand this. If someone wanted to actually train their brain to speak English more fluently, what would that look like day to day?
Great question. Let me paint a picture. So imagine someone spends 30 minutes a day on this.
Okay, 30 minutes a day.
They start with 10 minutes of shadowing, they pick a podcast or YouTube video, and they shadow for 10 minutes, just mimicking a native speaker.
Okay, so they're training their pronunciation and rhythm.
Exactly. After that, they spend 10 minutes on phrase practice. They review phrases they've learned using spaced repetition. Maybe they review phrases from yesterday and practice new phrases.
So they're building that library of chunks.
Right. And then the last 10 minutes, they practice speaking under time pressure. They do something like italki, or they find a conversation partner, or they even just record themselves answering questions quickly without planning.
So they're training all 3 components, pronunciation, vocabulary, and automaticity?
In just 30 minutes. And the key is consistency, not intensity. You don't need to study for 4 hours. You need to study for 30 minutes every single day.
Because spaced repetition works better over time?
Exactly. Your brain needs to access these neural pathways daily. That's what makes them stick.
How long before someone would see real results?
This depends, but most people see a noticeable improvement in confidence and automaticity within 4 to 6 weeks of consistent daily practice. Significant fluency improvement usually takes a few months.
So it's not a quick fix, but it's not impossibly long either.
No, it's totally doable. The key is understanding why these techniques work. When you understand the science, you don't give up.
I want to talk about mistakes because I think people accidentally train their brains in the wrong way.
What do you mean?
Like, the most common mistake is overthinking. Someone asks you a question and you spend 30 seconds thinking about the grammar before you answer. Your brain learns that speaking requires thinking.
So they're training the opposite of automaticity.
Exactly. They're strengthening the conscious pathway instead of the automatic one. So when they need to speak in real situations, their brain is like, okay, I need to think about this for 30 seconds.
That's brutal in real conversation.
Right. No one's going to wait 30 seconds for you to think about grammar.
So what's the fix?
You have to train yourself to respond immediately. It doesn't matter if it's perfect. You just open your mouth and speak. This trains your brain to produce language automatically.
What's another common mistake?
Passive consumption. People listen to podcasts and watch movies without actually producing language. They think listening is enough.
But listening is just training the receptive side?
Right. Your brain is like, okay, I can recognize English, but that doesn't mean you can produce it. You need active production.
So people have to actually speak?
Yeah, speaking is non-negotiable if you want to be fluent. You can't think your way to fluency. You have to speak your way to fluency.
Any other mistakes?
Oh, trying to learn too much vocabulary at once. People create these massive vocabulary lists with hundreds of words, and they try to learn them all in a week.
That's overwhelming?
It's impossible. Your brain can't process that much information. You're way better off learning 10 words deeply than 100 words superficially.
So quality over quantity?
Absolutely. Learn fewer things really well, practice them repeatedly, and get them into automatic storage. That's how you build real speaking ability.
I think there's also a mindset piece here, because a lot of learners are scared to speak.
Oh yeah, fear of making mistakes is huge.
And I think understanding the science actually helps with that, because when you realize that mistakes are literally how your brain learns, you're less afraid of them.
How are mistakes part of learning?
Your brain learns through trial and error. When you make a mistake and get corrected, your brain literally updates its prediction model. It's how language learning works at a neural level.
So mistakes are actually good?
Not good, exactly, but necessary. They're feedback for your brain. Without mistakes, your brain has nothing to update. Without feedback, there's no learning.
So if someone's afraid of making mistakes, they're actually handicapping their own learning?
Exactly. The people who improve fastest are the ones who embrace mistakes. They speak, they get feedback, they adjust, they speak again.
And the people who are afraid to speak?
They don't get the feedback. Their brain doesn't update. They stay stuck at the same level.
That's actually a powerful way to think about it. Mistakes aren't the enemy. Fear of mistakes is the enemy.
Exactly. And once you understand how your brain actually learns, you can flip that mindset.
So this is why fluent speakers are usually the people who don't mind making mistakes?
Yes, they speak, they fail, they learn, they adjust, and their brain is constantly getting feedback and updating.
Okay, so we've covered a lot. Let me recap the main ideas.
Please do.
Your brain has to move language from conscious processing to automatic processing to be fluent. You do that through repetition, spaced practice, shadowing, and speaking under time pressure.
And consistency matters way more than intensity.
30 minutes every day beats 4 hours once a week. Your brain needs daily access to those neural pathways.
And you have to embrace mistakes because that's how your brain learns.
Exactly. So here's your challenge this week. I want you to commit to 15 minutes of intentional speaking practice.
What does that look like?
You pick one technique, shadowing, rapid response, or speaking with a partner, and you commit to doing it every day for 7 days, just 15 minutes.
That's totally doable.
And pay attention to how your brain feels different. Notice how it gets easier after a few days as your brain starts to rewire.
You'll actually feel your automaticity improving.
And tell us in the comments, which technique are you going to try? Shadowing, rapid response, speaking with a partner?
We'd love to know what's going to work best for your brain.
Thanks so much for joining us on Native English Skills. If you found this helpful, please like the video and subscribe for more episodes.
And remember, your brain is capable of amazing things. You just have to train it the right way.
Keep listening, keep speaking, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Take care, everyone.